Welcome here. My name is Daniel Fehr-Krahn, and I'm out of Winnipeg, Canada. Some of the material you might want to get if you don't have access, we want to get you a copy of this book. We got 2 million in print, and we could get you a copy if you don't have one. It's called Saving Your Future, and some of the content we're going to cover today will be in this book. Another book is titled Financial Education Workbook. That's exactly what it's titled. And a couple words on the back, but that's what it is. And it's a workbook for you to take notes in. It looks like this, so you can take notes exactly to the topic. Now, if you don't have this book, you can still take notes. If you don't have this book, you can still participate. And welcome here, Amy Sereneth, I believe. Heidi, good to see you again. Ramneet.
Hello.
We got Chad coming in. He's got his phone down on the table. I like that. And welcome here, Helen. But we got a bunch of stuff to go through today. And so let's keep it quick. You didn't come here to learn about me. We want to come and learn maybe about financial literacy and investing. But let me catch us up on how we got to today. This is workshop number 5. And so previous to that is 4 previous workshops. The first workshop is an overview of finance that gives you general principles to think about, things like compound interest, saving versus spending, the wealth formula, and of course, the financial foundations. The second workshop is all about cash flow. It talks about those 4 things that you control: your income, your expenses, your assets, and your liabilities. You buy assets, nobody forces you to. You take on liabilities, nobody forces you to. You earn a certain amount of income, you get to choose the career you work in. Nobody forces you to have a low-paying job or a high-paying job. And also what you spend in Canada, most of our spending is voluntary. So we choose all that stuff. The third workshop is about protection, how protection works, the 3 different types of protection. Maybe CI is a 4th type, but term insurance, universal life, whole life, how those things are structured, and how to put a combo together to best suit your family. And then workshop 4 is about saving in the stock market and how the stock market works. And so what that looks like, basically like a marketplace for investments. And so people they say, I don't believe in the marketplace for investments. Well, where do you buy investments? There's always a marketplace. And now we're into workshop number 5. And let's jump right in here, and then we'll summarize it, and you guys can see exactly what I see. We're going to talk about long-term goals. And I need to reshape my screen slightly. Be patient. Long-term goals. Disclaimer: I'm not your advisor. You need to meet with an individual professional and have a one-on-one relationship with them. That's where you get the best advice, and they can apply what you're learning. Today, we're going to be learning, but we're not going to be applying. We're just going to be learning for educational purposes only. You're going to apply this on your own and go from there. I like that you have OBS, Cynthia. It's a good move. It's a good move getting into learning how to communicate with that stuff. Who are we? So some of you might have been invited here. Hey, come into our workshop. We have a campaign that we think we can educate 30 million families by 2030. We run this workshop or something very similar to this 6 times today. This is number 6. And so if we got 20 people in here, if the earlier one is maybe a little bit more, so maybe 100 people a day. And that's not all we're touching. We got about 70,000 licensed representatives in the total platform. And we want people to be part of our campaign and help us grow. We can't do it alone. We need to grow. We need to work as a team. And our workshop, I think, is unique. One of the ways it's unique is if I took a bunch of courses and talked to other advisors in the industry, experienced traditional guys that have been here a long time, they would tell me to niche down. They would tell me only work with a certain type of client, certain product, get good at one thing, don't be holistic. Don't take care of everybody. Just take care of the people that make a lot of money. And that's what they would do. And it would be profitable, but I think because we can scale, we can stay holistic. So we have a holistic approach, which means if you have a question, we could probably go off topic a little bit and get those questions answered. I do see the chat on my screen. I'm a little studio here at in downtown. I'm not downtown, but I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Got a peanut in my throat from a peanut bar. It's still there. I'm going to cough it out later. But excuse me. So we want to empower you. So by the way, at the end of this hour, you're not going to be forced to buy anything, sell anything. But if something makes sense, we want you to make changes. That's what we would like. So the excuse me. I'm back to normal. This is a concept called the financial foundation. Now, when you buy a house, it's nobody says, come look at my foundation. Hey, I live in an area where my basement is called a 3/4 basement, which means I can see my basement foundation. I could see if it leaks. I could see if the mice come in, where they come in from. I could see it's all concrete. I can see everything about it. But when it comes to finances, the financial foundation is the things you don't see. It's not the car and the house. It's not the glasses and the tie. What it is this. Oh, I keep touching my iPad. It's having the right insurance in place. Is there contracts that will legally protect you if something happens? This isn't a moral issue of, do you buy insurance? This is a legal issue that if I have a contract that says if I die, there's an insurance company out there that's going to give my wife a check. If she dies too, they're going to give it to a contingent beneficiary, and I have contracts that protect myself because I live in a first world that in North America, we can have contracts that protect us, and the legal system can protect the family unit. Without insurance, I leave myself, leave my family in the wild if I pass away or if I got cancer. So I need to know there's money coming in. And I do that through basic contract law, or I can buy a contract, which we also covers an asset law. But I need the right insurance. Hey, if you run out of money in North America, you could borrow money. So nobody starves because they run out of money. We just go into debt when we run out of money. We need to learn how to manage our money. Emergency money. You need to have cash. And lastly, investments. Now, none of these things are visible when you meet somebody. If you're in the dating world, you're single. This is what you really want to know. Are they insurable? Are they paying off their debt? Do they have cash? And is there a future? But you have to figure out how to get to this stuff. But this is what we call a financial foundation. And this is what lifestyle is built upon. If someone builds lifestyle, but they haven't built a financial foundation, the lifestyle won't last. If someone passes away, misses a bill, runs out of money, or gets old, the lifestyle is gone. And so once someone moves up in lifestyle, it's very difficult to move down. In fact, it costs dignity to move down. The ego moves you up, but when you move down in lifestyle, it's a lack of dignity. Dignity drops. But we want to look at, and then when I write a financial plan out, by the way, when we sit down with a family, we can look at and write 8 numbers. We basically write, one second, let me draw on this thing. We basically write what you put in and what you have. So I might say, hey, I put in $100 a month to insurance. I put in $500 a month towards my debt. I put in $100 a month towards here. And then I put $100 a month times 2 because my employer matches me in my investments. And then I can say, hey, I have what I have is maybe 1 million. Maybe my debt, I have 20 grand. Maybe my emergency fund, I have 10 grand. And I got 10 grand investments. So we can look at this and we can figure out, hey, what kind of financial foundation is this? Good protection. The debt could use some work. 10 grand cash looks okay. Hopefully they're very young with just 10 grand of investing, right? We can look at this stuff and look at a whole financial plan, or you can write it out like this. What do you have? And it says, what do you want? You just do, hey, I have this, I want this. The difference is what you pay. So if you buy these, you get more. I could just buy more insurance, or I could pay off my debt I could just save cash or buy investments. But this is how we look at a financial plan. And this is the tools we use. Today, we're going to talk about investing, what that looks like. So growing your wealth and making money make money. If investing is truly passive, then it doesn't matter if I have 10,000 to invest, 100,000 to invest, or $1 million to invest. The effort is the same, zero, right? You just make a few decisions. So today we're going to look at 3 ways to invest, or two things that most people invest for, plus the tax. So every time you do something good, there's always new challenges. So if you're paying off a bunch of debt, you always have a debt payment. But if you're earning a lot of money, now you have a tax payment. I don't know which one's worse, debt or tax. Tax you pay annually and debt you pay monthly. But we're going to look at this. And 2 biggest things people spend money on is kids' university and retirement. We're going to look at college first because it comes first in your schedule. But as a priority, college should be second to retirement. Just so you know, we're going to cover it first, but it comes second in my opinion. Here's why. If my son has to finance his education, he can do that. But I cannot finance my retirement. So if I use all my retirement money on my son's education and I have nothing for retirement, I can't borrow money for retirement. But if I got my money towards retirement set up, but I don't get his education set up, we could finance school. We cannot finance old age. At a certain age, nobody wants to borrow you money, right? So that's the reality of it. When we look at how to save for kids' education, how much, when do we start, what's enough? I think there's 2 things that actually matter and many things that don't matter. And the thing that doesn't matter is so much where you put it. That's a 3rd place maybe. The question is, if someone's not saving money, how do we get them to save money? Sometimes we meet someone who's not saving the money and we say, hey, Chad, you should save $100 a month in your kid's name. And they say, yeah. Or we say, hey, Jackie, you should save $100 a month in your grandkid's name. And they say, yeah. But if I say you should save for your retirement, they say no. Or I say you should put $100 a month against your home and pay it off quicker. They say no. But if I say you should put $100 a month away for your kids so they don't have to borrow money when they go to school, they say yeah. So bringing kids into it is a way to get someone to save that otherwise wouldn't save. And all savings is good. But when you save for a kid's education, that's earmarked for their education. And there are costs to change the purpose of that money. So once you decide to save, if education is the purpose for saving, then we say how much enough? Where do we save it? We look at some of these things. Does it cost a lot of money to send a kid to university? So living at home, it's about 10 grand a year, 48 grand for 4 years, 12 grand a year call it. After inflation, it's going to go up. If you don't live at home and you travel to another city, maybe you want to be a veterinarian, something like that, it costs more money. But there's a lot of debt out there. And the question is, if they're going to go to school, do you save or do you finance? You either save now and pay, or you borrow later and pay. But either way, you're going to pay. This is what it looks like for tuition. Now, this is my opinion, not the workshop. You need to look at what it costs and what you get. For example, in 20 years, if my son goes to school for $67,000, he gets a Bachelor of Arts. It doesn't come with extra income anymore. It actually wastes 3 years. He meets a bunch of guys who think a Bachelor of Arts might be wonderful, but maybe he wants to be an engineer. Well, an engineering degree and a Bachelor of Arts degree cost the same, more or less, but one is worth a lot more than the other. If you become a nurse, it pays more than if you become a educational assistant. Both take a couple years in school. So you got to make sure when you pay for something, you're getting something worth more than you pay for. And there's 3 ways to fund higher education. You can save for it, you get some grants, you earn it through scholastics, or you borrow. So let's look at this. Let's say you want to save 50 to 100 bucks a month. If school costs 65 grand and you have 18 years to save, you start when they're Zero. So if you get a return of 5 or 8%, you got to save 140 a month or 190 a month, depending how aggressive you are investing. Maybe you have something that did 8 in the past and doesn't do 8 in the future, but hey, you should save more. But I think 100, 200 bucks a month. In fact, if you live in Canada, the government gives you the child C benefit, right? CCB. And they're going to give you some money and you could save that money. Here's some details are in the RESP. Some of these details look like this. They'll match 20% of what you put in, up to $2,500 a year. You can put more in, you don't get the match. The only reason you would put more in is if you've maxed out your RRSP, TFSA, and paid off your first home. Then we're looking for different places that are not perfectly efficient, but more efficient than not. You get a lifetime grant of $7,000 per child. And depending on your province and your income, you get some additional grants possible. Now, here's one of the issues with an RESP. You get a 20% bonus when you put money in. So let's say I put $100 in. The government puts in 20, so now I got 120. Let's say I don't put any more money in and I grow this to double, to 240, right? 240. So I start off with 100 goes in, plus 20, so I'm at 120. I grow it over time to 240. Now, if I don't use it for kids' education, it says here, if the RSP is not used for an approved education, let's say I just had a client pull 30 grand out of their RESP to upgrade their house. They said, well, kids are living with us, may as well build them a room instead of sending them to school. 140 of the 240 becomes taxable. Sorry. If they pull it out, 100, the growth on it is taxed. And the $40 goes back to the government. So the client would only end up with, like, let's say it's a 30% tax, they'd only end up with 170. So if you don't use it for school, a TFSA is better because $100 would have turned into 200, no tax. So here, if you don't use it for school, you give the grant back and you get a little bit of tax. But if you use it for school, 20% is a good thing. If you don't use it for school, there is no 20%, you give that back. So, but anyway, if you're saving money, it's a good thing. Now, some of the questions in here, earnings will not be taxed on the original capital, but the earnings or grants will be taxed in the child's name, unless you pull it out for a purpose other than school. Now, this works really well for grandparents because the donor stays in control. The grandkid doesn't get in control of the money. Your contributions are not tax deductible, so it starts to compete with life insurance very closely. And early withdrawals, for any reason, are allowed, but earnings are subject to income tax. So you can also apply to the Canada Student Financial Assistance Program. And you can look at this and you can say, a grant is where you get money and you never repay it. It's a wonderful thing. A loan is where you get money and you pay back more than you got. But so you can look on different things where your province, your family income, if you're running a business, maybe your income is less than your cash flow, your tuition fees. If you have a disability, there's a lot of extra grants. You should reach out to a professional who understands the disability market. We can help you out in a big way with that market. But the question is just save, first comes saving, but then you can project tuition costs. If your kid wants to be an engineer, let's price it out. Let's price it out before we go through it. Then talk to the kid about, hey, this is what you have to pay back. Are there government programs or grants? What are the tax consequences? When I went to university, I financed it on credit. And when my wife went to university, she got free money. Her parents saved a little bit, and then she got a bunch of scholarships. She was a book reader and did tests well and all that kind of stuff and got free money. I had no idea that you would get free money. I took tests well, but I didn't read many books, so I didn't get it. I didn't apply for any of these. But we can look at that. So if you want to save for school, there's many ways to save. I can use a tax-free education, tax-free savings account, I could use it for my son too. So, or I can do TFSA if I'm not maxing it out, wait till my son is 10 years old. Then I can start doing 2,500 a year. Now I'm not, and then I know a little bit more if he's scholastic or not. Let's move to retirement. Is that cool? If you have a question about RESP, now's the time. Type it in, and we'll get that answered. But are you ready to plan for retirement? Have you saved 3 months' income? Now, if you don't get ahead of your bills, how are you going to get ahead of life? So emergency fund keeps you out of debt. Can you pay all your debts off? So do you earn enough to pay all your debt? Or do you cut your lifestyle to get out of debt? Is your kid's university paid for? Are your kids grown up? Are you on next big plan is retirement, right? Don't wait for all these things to happen, but this is, retirement's next when these things happen. So let's look at this. Traditionally, there's 3 sources of money when it comes to retirement. We got your personal savings, your savings. Now, in my opinion, personal savings is dismal. For wealthy people, that's where most of it comes from. But poor people is just a position. It's nothing good or bad about it. Usually they have company pension where the company put money away, what's called a LIRA, L-I-R-A. That's what that says, L-I-R-A, if you're at home. Or they got government benefits, which is like CPP, OAS, and that stuff. So they're kind of working on these things, and they don't have a whole lot of personal savings. That's what a lot of clients I run into that are in their 50s and 60s. And so we want to look at this and say, hey, what are our options here? Let's get to know what's out there. There are 3 major benefits from the government. There's also one called the allowance. So there's 4 that says allowance, if you're taking notes. I'm not a note taker, but I write things down so I remember. Old age security is OAS, CPP, and GIS. Let's know what we're going to do on all of these. So old age security. Monthly benefits are available 65 and over. Employment history is not a factor, which means if you're a stay-at-home wife, single person, not working, you get it. This is coming in. Last year is about $650 a month. So you think, okay, $650, what's that going to pay for? Maybe that pays for your food, maybe that pays for your rent, maybe it pays for your car loan, maybe whatever it is, but you're going to get $650 a month. If you make too much money, your OAS can get clawed back. So almost everybody in Canada gets this, unless they move to Canada late in life and they haven't been a citizen for very long or a resident, right? So they've only been a resident for 5 years, move here when they're 60, they don't add a whole lot. Another thing to know about OAS is it's paid for through general taxes. It's similar to America's Social Security. CPP is a little different. Here's one of the things you got to know. You contribute to CPP, you pay in. It's while you're working. So contributions are made by the employee and the employer. And the average amount you're going to get is $800. This is a normal amount that I see. If someone earned a lot of money their whole life, maybe they get closer to $1,200, but on average, you're expecting, let's call it $750. So now let's add it up. I got OAS, $650, CPP, $750. That adds up to $1,400 per month. Now, if you're married, call that $2,800 a month. If someone has no mortgage anymore, mortgage is paid off, they don't pay rent, they paid off their cars, they have 0 debt, they don't pay rent, they don't pay car loans, they don't drive to work anymore, but they do drive. Is $2,800 enough to buy food and have some fun? Nod your head, yeah, no. I see everyone's camera anyways. Even if your camera's off, I still see you. Don't worry. You can nod your head. Maybe it is. Let's keep looking. CPP gives you options now. So you can take it early at age 60, or you can wait till age 70. You get it until you die. So the question is, how many years are you going to get it for? So let's go through. If you take it early, you're going to get 7% less per year. If you take it late, you're going to get 8% more per year. So you might get 600, 800, or 1200, something like that. So you might get, okay, maybe it's at age 60, 65, 70. So I say, do I want 1200 a month at age 70, starting at 70 till I die? Or 600 a month at age 60 till I die? Here's the question. What happens if you die at age 69? Well, now it's best to start early. What if you die at age 99? Well, now it's best to start at age 70. So if you can predict the day you're going to die, then I can tell you what the best time to take it is. The other thing that matters is, can you afford to take it early? What I mean is, if you can't afford to live on $600 a month with your other amounts, then you can't take it early. You got to wait till there's enough money for you to survive on. So if it's all you got, you need to wait until you have enough money to survive on. And maybe if you take it early, can you manage it? What I mean by that is, let's say I worry about, maybe I don't want to outlive my money. I don't want to die at age 70 and I don't get enough from the government though I paid in. Maybe I take it at 60 and I save it. I use it to pay off my debt, pay off my car loan, pay off my mortgage. So when I turn 70, I've wiped out a lot of the expenses in my 60s. So one thing you got to know is CPP and OAS are taxable. So they will increase your taxes if you take it while you're working. If you take it while you're not working, you'll be in a lower tax bracket. How long will you live? Can you manage money? How do you feel about taxes? What are you going to do with the money? If you just add it to your budget and you bump into a financial advisor 4 years from now, he's going to say, do you take CPP? Yeah. What do you do with it? General expenses. They're very dangerous to not have a plan for your money. So that's CPP. There's a third one called GIS. We're going to run a comparison later. Here, if you're 65 or over and you make less than $19,000 a year, which means you get your CPP, you get your OAS, but nothing else. Or you get a weak CPP and you don't get much OAS, they're going to top you up. The range ranges from 0 to 900 a month. So for some people, they might get a big chunk of money. For some people, they get no money. So GIS depends on your income, and OAS is not included. So if you look at your OAS payment, your CPP payment, in general, these are the ones we're usually looking at. When you're calculating, let's say your CPP payment is $700 and you're pulling $1,300 from your RSPs. They don't count your OAS when calculating GIS. So this guy would make $24,000 a year, no GIS for that guy. But let's say instead of saving in an RSP, he saved in a tax-free savings account. That says tax-free savings account. Now, his income is only $8,000 a year, $8,400. He's going to get a lot of money from GIS. So, or maybe you delay your RSP or take them early. But we want to look at a strategy. Everybody's a little bit unique. There's so many variables. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you OAS is not included in this GIS calculation. So a lot of people's income is actually going to be under 20 grand, especially if you're married. There's 40 grand, each. So will it be enough? I don't know. I don't know what kind of lifestyle you got. So you can go to Canada.ca. Canada.ca has two logins, one general and one at CRA.ca, and one is like Canada.ca. It's kind of funny that way, but you're going to log into both of them and you can check. If you log in, it'll show you, here's what you get at 60, 65, 70. Here's what you're expecting to get. You should probably do this. I was going to say at 40. No, don't do it at 40. I'm 40. So I just turned 40 today. So don't even look at it at 40. It should be like 45, 50 years old. When you start paying in, you can figure out, hey, what am I going to get out of this thing? And when you look at your government benefits, we want to match your bills. So if your bills look like this, we want to say, well, maybe you have housing, maybe you have food, maybe you have your car payment, maybe you have fun. Well, how much money do you have? Maybe my government covers my house. Maybe my OAS covers my food. Maybe my LIRA or my RRSP or my TFSA pays my fuel. Maybe all the cash I have in my bank on my part-time job covers my fun. But you got to stack up your income and stack up your expenses. And many times, most people aren't used to multiple sources of income until they turn 65. But you should be looking for multiple sources of income tomorrow. That's what I recommend. Not, it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday or Friday, so it's kind of tough. But you want to look at your investment vehicles or what's available. Let's look at company pension. There's two main ways companies have pensions. They're both called pensions. A defined benefit is paid for by the employer. You got to remember this, it's very costly. I see what's happening here. What happened in the 70s for defined benefit plan. It actually used to be one of the best careers ever to be out there talking to companies selling defined benefit plans. And all the money that went into there, the guy who sold the company the plan would make a lot of money. And a bunch of people came together, a bunch of regulators, and they said, whenever someone gets rich, it's a bad thing. Let's not pay any commission. This is my opinion. Just so you know, it's not part of our slide. Let's not pay any commission for people in the 1970s selling defined benefit plan. So now nobody's calling a business saying, do you want to save for your employees? I never got a call like that. And so nobody buys this anymore. Only federal, big companies who are seeking it out, but it's not very common for a small company to start setting this up. Now, we can set it up for as small as 3 or 4 employees. Even at WFG, we can do it. But not a lot of people, the market is changing. Let's compare. Defined contribution. So here is, the amount is defined by what you put in, not by what you're promised. So your investment responsibility and your fee, you get to choose where it's invested. That's a wonderful thing if you know how to choose and your pension company sucked. But it's a bad thing if you don't know how to choose what to invest in. In fact, most of the clients we bump into don't know what they're invested in. So we say, hey, if you're young, we want to look at your risk tolerance and your understanding of risk and buy something that matches your tolerance. One of the main differences is in here is this one is going to produce income. And this one is going to produce a lump sum. Now, if you pass away, usually the income, a portion of it can go to your spouse in a defined benefit plan. But in a defined contribution plan, the lump sum, if I have 500,000 lump sum or 25 grand a year income, when I die, my wife might get 15 grand a year income. But if I have a defined contribution, the way it worked is if you have 10 jobs throughout your whole career, you can slowly build up through many different places to contribute. And if you had previous jobs, you can go capture that money and keep it with you, and you just bring it along for the ride. Both are good, but depends on what you're looking for. The last couple of decades, defined benefit plans are more costly, so people don't do them. They shift to defined contribution, and the employee bears all the risk. So you got to add to those based on your personal savings. There's many places to put your personal savings. We're going to cover some of these. A mutual fund is an investment vehicle where a pool of money is invested into a with a portfolio manager. We have half of this book is how a mutual fund works. Investors pool their money and they share in the profit or loss. When a company goes public, it distributes a dividend or the share price goes up so they can sell the company. And you share in the profit and the loss of those companies. Some of the advantages, by the way, the advantages are actually more important in how it works. You can start with like $50 a month, $100 a month. You can start tomorrow. You can say, hey, I want to do a $50 a month savings plan into a mutual fund. And when the economy does well, I do well. You know, if you were investing during COVID, or during all the lockdowns and the market's going up and people say the rich are getting richer, it wasn't the rich getting richer. Investors got richer. Now, if you're a poor investor or a rich investor, you still did well when the market goes up. Liquidity. A mutual fund has to be liquid as a function of law, which means you can sell it the day after you buy it, or any day you want. In Winnipeg, it's at 3 p.m. You get me a piece of paper that says, I want to sell this. The next day at 3 p.m., we're going to sell that unit and we're going to get that money to you within 3-4 days. Not everything can be sold right away. If I pass away and my wife wants to sell my house, it will not sell tomorrow. She might need 1 month or 6 months to sell that house. So mutual funds can be you can get them out, you can get out right away. It's diversified. There's never been a mutual fund in the history of our country that went to zero. It's never happened because they invest in many companies, and many companies in many industries don't go to zero. It's just a function of investment theory. Risk is spread out over many asset classes, and then you use a professional to manage that money. You can use rules too. You can do passive, you can do active. There's many different ways to do that. And there's also fees that you want to look at to make sure your fees are reasonable. Segregated funds is another structure of a fund. Unlike a mutual fund, they do a guarantee to protect part of the money you invest. There's 3 main guarantees in a segregated fund. 75% of the money you invest, or 100% of the money you invest, or a percentage of the gain. So for example, Empire has a program where they'll give you a 4% growth every year. It's a notional growth that attaches to your income. So you make more money every year, you never lose money. We have a principal guarantee, death benefit guarantee, potentially creditor protection. You need a preferred beneficiary to have creditor protection, which means my wife or my son is a beneficiary, not my brother, not my business partner. If a business owns a segregated fund, for them to be on side tax-wise, they need to be the beneficiary. So when a business owns a segregated fund, it's not typically creditor protected because the beneficiary is the corporation. If you lose a lot of money and you get a 100% guarantee, you got to wait till the maturity to get that guarantee. So you got to give the investment firm time to recover. If they don't, you get your money paid out. Sometimes there's an additional fee for this insurance. Sometimes there's not. It depends on the company we use to invest that money. An annuity. An annuity means a pension that you bought based on your age. Not a pension is usually sold to you. An annuity is purchased by you. So it's an insurance product that helps address the risk of outliving your money. You give a large lump sum of money to the insurance company and they pay you monthly, like a pension. If people own an annuity, if the majority of their retirement comes from an annuity, they will live 2 years longer than those that don't. The number one determiner of longevity in North America is income. Let me say that again. If you want to live a long time and you go to the gym every day and I go to work every day and my income goes up, statistics say the guy who makes the most lives the longest and the guy who makes the least dies the soonest. And especially if that income's guaranteed. And so if people run out of money, their choices become less than wise. And so it's kind of like your own personal pension. We sell these through WFG. We do a lot of them. We call them a GMWB, or a guaranteed monthly withdrawal benefit program. We can do an investment account, which is basically a segregated fund that looks like a mutual fund with no extra fees. You can do a TFSA, RRSP, Beneva runs these stuff, and it's a segregated fund or investment account that looks like a mutual fund. So it is mimic it. An RDSP. So an RDSP, here's the details. You get $1,000 a year times 20. You can go back 10 years or forward 20 years, but maximum is 20 years. Whether you go back 10 and go forward 10. So if I have a disability tax credit and I've been disabled 10 years, I'm going to get 10 grand up front to invest, and up to 300%. And so there's 4 sources of money. One is what I put in. It's called my deposit. So I got my deposit times 300%. So if I put in $200, the government's going to put in $600. Then I get a lump sum every year of $1,000. I can go back, and then I get to invest that wherever I want. So I get my interest on my money. It's a great program. If you have a disability tax credit, or you know anyone with a disability tax credit, they could be blind in one eye. Maybe I know a guy can't drive at night. Another guy's got an insulin pump. Another guy has got his bladder's too small, so he's got to go pee every 2 hours. He's considered as a disability tax credit. If someone is in a wheelchair, anything, there's a lot of free money, and we're very good at that. I actually built my entire business because I recruited someone whose wife had MS. I got him securities license and life license, and she was in a wheelchair. She could find someone else in a wheelchair and say, do you have all these credits? And they'd say, what credits? And then we have an appointment. And he was actually my exchange leg to SMB. And we built together, and we built that all up. RRSP. This is Canada's most popular investment plan. It is not my most popular investment plan, but it is Canada's. Here's the rules you need to know. When you put money in, it's tax deductible, just like a business expense. And there's no tax while it grows. But both the investment earnings are taxed when you withdraw from the plan. That's what you got to know. No tax. You get tax back when you put it in. But when you take it out, you're going to pay tax. Let me state that again so you're very clear. When you put money into an RRSP, you get a tax refund because you deduct it from your income like a business expense. But when you pull the money out of an RRSP, you're going to pay tax on it. An RRSP or a PRIF or a LIRA or a RPP or a RIF or LIF are all taxed the same, and they look like an RRSP. They're all brothers and sisters of an RRSP. Some are just have different locked-in rules. So that's RRSP. You get to choose what's in your investments in the RRSP. I ask a lot of people, what's in your RRSP? What are you investing in? You get to choose your investment options. I got licensed in 2006, and right then they changed the rules. You used to have to have half of your assets in Canada. So when I started, I'd meet clients that have 80, 90% of their assets in Canada, which is 2% of the world's market. I say, why don't we go global? Why are you investing in only oil and financial services? So we go global, and we did much better than the Canadian market over the last 10 years. So we look at, hey, what are the options? When you move from one RRSP to another RRSP, you do not pay taxes. There's no tax when you move an RRSP, as long as you're not pulling it out to spend it. You want to ensure your investments match your risk. So if you bought RRSPs 10 years ago or at a group plan, however old you were when you signed up at that company, that's probably your risk tolerance back then. You want to look at your risk tolerance, and you want to work with someone you trust to manage your money. And you want to work with someone that your ego is okay asking them questions. You have to be able to say, how does this actually work? Can you explain it to me one more time? Instead of just buying it and saying, hey, I bought from a guy, he had golden glasses and a golden tie. How could I go wrong? And I tell you, don't talk to your friends about it, right? You know, that's what sometimes happens. You say, I'm your family. Well, you got to ask questions. What's in it for me? By the way, if you ever want to buy from a guy with a golden tie, golden glasses, I'm the only guy out there that has a matching. Check this out. Tax-free savings account. Here's what you got to know. You'll never have to pay tax on money you put into this thing. But you don't get a tax deduction on the way in. If you take money out, you can recontribute. So RSP, when you put money in, you get a tax deduction. TFSA, no tax deduction. They both grow tax deferred, but when you retire or when you pull the money out, you take a year off work, one is taxed as income, one is not taxed. That's basically it. So do you want to pay tax now or do you want to pay tax later? What's the tax rate going to be 20 or 30 or 40 years from now? Is it going to be higher or lower? You tell me. So non-registered, all it means is not all investment income is taxed at the same way or at the same rates. There's 4 ways to get taxed on non-registered investments. And then there's a 5th funny way. One is called return of capital, which means if I put $100,000 into an investment and I pull out return of capital, which is my own money, there's no tax. So what you put in is not taxed, unlike an RSP. I can take a dividend. I can earn dividends on my money. I can earn capital gains on my money, or I can earn interest income on my money. Interest is the worst, and depending on your income, dividends or capital gains, depending on your income. Low income, dividends are better. High income, capital gains better. In fact, if you have a low enough income, your dividend could be negative tax because you get a tax refund off a gross up. Where is your money? We look at quite a few investment vehicles to save for retirement. However, if we're building wealth, you got to consider taxes. So when you make money at a job, I'm not even going to say it. When you spend money, guess what? If I spend $4, I spend more than $4. By the way, if you save money, you got to deal with tax too. And when you pass away, you're going to be taxed more too. Right? So I'm going to look for a blank page here. Oh, no, I'm not going to look for a blank page yet. So when we look at this, I apologize. Let me go forward a little faster. How many times do I need to click? So the wealth formula says you got to put money away. You can make more money or spend less money, but you got to come up with some money. You got to do it for a long period of time. And we want to get you a rate of return that beats inflation. And then tax is always minus. Usually it's just an issue when you pay the tax. So there's different categories. One of them is an first home savings account. When you put money into this account, you get a tax deduction like an RSP. But if you pull it out to put a down payment on a home, you get no tax. It's one of the only loopholes in Canada for non-business owners that they can pay zero tax on money without the use of life insurance. So tax-free savings, you don't get a refund, but here you would. That's the difference. Tax now, usually that also looks at your job. You get taxed every time you get a check. Tax later means you get taxed at the later rates. And tax advantage typically means no tax. Very simple to understand that. You know, when do you want to pay your tax? The government's going to get you. So 4 vehicles of wealth. Let me, I wonder if I can get a blank page here. Oh, I unshared. Let me play again and share my screen again. Oh, I think I messed it up. Do you guys see the 4 vehicles of wealth? Is that what you see?
Yes, we can, Dave and Daniel.
We're going to go through a summary here real quick, and then we can look at it together. But an RSP, you get tax deduction when you put it in. Now, if you got a good income, that's a wonderful thing. There's nothing wrong with a tax deduction. But you also got to know when we look at a summary, the good thing is tax deduction. But the bad thing is taxed as income. That is the good and the bad. Non-registered. Now you get to choose how it's taxed, because you get to choose when you withdraw, it's subject to tax based on dividend, capital gains, return of capital, interest. If someone, just saying, if someone has $1 million death benefit, a widow, and they go to the bank and get a 5% GIC, they're going to get $50,000 in income every year, taxed at $50,000 in income. If they went to a corporate class mutual fund, which is just a different kind of mutual fund, and they bought an income fund that paid 5% as well on $1 million, they could draw the 5% free, no tax, for 20 years before starting paying tax. And when they do pay tax, it'll be on capital gains tax, which is a half the rate. So 5% at a bank or 5% in our industry, one is tax advantage and one is tax terrible. But interest is taxed the worst, and investments are taxed the best. Here, you can also cash out or borrow against. Let's say I have $1 million RSP and I need 70 grand. I can just go to the bank and borrow 70 grand with no tax. Do my investment plan and then put the money back, no tax. But if I borrow my money out, I got to pay tax when I sell the money. So that's why borrowing avoids the selling of the units. Tax-free savings. One of the worst parts about tax-free savings is this. No tax deduction when you put it in. So the RSP is tempting a little bit. But the good thing about the RSP, tax-free when you pull it out. You cannot borrow against tax-free. The government already borrows it out. It's there, it's a government program. So it's hard to take a loan against the TFSA. And lastly, you buy insurance product. There are 4 ways to get money out of an insurance product if you're using it as an investment vehicle. If you pay, just so you know, there is what's called an ACB. That is mostly what you put in minus the cost of insurance. Adjusted cost basis. With real estate, it's adjusted cost base. Insurance, adjusted cost basis. I don't know why the difference, but anything above the ACB, if you do a withdrawal, it's taxed. If you do a policy loan, it's taxed. If you do a surrender, it's taxed. But if you do a collateral loan, there's no tax. But a collateral loan, you must usually put up other collateral as well, usually your house. And currently in Canada, we don't have any non-callable collateral loans. So it could be called. And if they call that loan, you got to pay it back. So you got to keep your money liquid. So there's different ways to get money out of an insurance policy. Typically, a whole life, you can do 90% of the cash value. And if you put your whole life or UL into a secured investment, it's also 90. If you're in the market, it's probably a little bit less. But you can take that money out. You don't have to sell the policy to get the money out. You can just pay off that loan when you die. Now, it is more complicated because everything that's good in finance, the better it gets, the more complicated it gets. But usually, what matters is how much you put in. The more you put in, the more potential you have to get out. If you pay the minimum and you're always squeezing your advisor saying, make it cheaper, make it cheaper, make it cheaper, they're going to make it cheaper. And then when you get old, you have no money in it, just like your TFSA RSP2. So here's a good question. If you had $1 million, where would you want it? Would you want an RSP, non-registered investments, TFSA, UL cash value, whole life cash value? A few minutes ago, Ramneet said taxes in retirement are going to be lower. I missed it in the chat room. And sometimes when you look at this, most of my clients who are retiring pay around 30% tax bracket because they get a part-time job, because they can't live on $1,500 a month. So the part-time job puts them back in the normal tax bracket. I can't live on less than $3 grand a month. There's no way. So I'm always going to have $3 grand, whether it's retirement income or job income. So here's my I'm just going to show you a quick example before we take off. We're going to do an example of RRSP versus TFSA. Now, the RSP could be a LIRA, could be a pension, could be CPP, OAS. The TFSA could be a properly structured life insurance plan. It could be a paid off house. It could be an FHSA loan, anything that's tax advantage. So if I save $5,000 per year, if hypothetically I get an 8% rate of return, hypothetically, because we're going to assume it 8% every year for 30 years, exactly 8, not up and down, no variability. The higher interest rate you start getting, the more variability in potential return you get. And we're going to do that for 30 years. So I save $5,000 a year, 8% for 30 years. I end up with $600,000 plus. Now, if I have it in a RRSP plan or a TFSA plan. Now I want to preface this that we're just doing round numbers for general concept. This is not your tax return. If I do, let's assume the RRSP, when I buy that, I'm going to get a tax refund of $2,000. Make $100,000 a year. I buy $5,000. I get a tax refund of $2,000 when I file my taxes. Times by 30 years, it's $600,000 in tax refunds. That's why it's going to be green. TFSA, no tax refund. So if you pay off your credit card every year because of tax refund, good for you. Now, when you retire, let's look at retirement. You're going to draw 6% of the $600,000, which is rich, by the way. It's a very high draw on a retirement plan. You earn 6 and you spend 6. Now, in reality, in actual finance reality, if you earn 10% on your investments and you withdraw 10% on your investments, you will run out of money in 11 years because the earnings is variable, but the drawing is consistent. So it's the opposite of dollar cost averaging, called sequence of return risk. That is not for today. But for today, you get $36,000 a year. I should have used different colors earlier, but I did not. If you get $36,000 a year and you're in a 33% tax bracket, you might have to pay $12,000 a year tax. 33%. The first 30 years that give you 40%, $22,000 to 5. Now at 33%, you pay that, and then you live on $24,000. But in the TFSA, here, you have no tax. So you have $36,000 plus GIS of up to $900 a month. Because your income is 0. Or maybe you get some CPP, offsets your GIS. But hey, what would you rather have? $45,000 a year? GIS is non-taxable, I believe. Don't quote me on that. It replaces rent assist. And but the RSP guy has $24,000 to live on, but the other guy's got an extra $20,000 a year. Because the lower income gets you the GIS. Now, check this out. If someone passes, we haven't spent the $600,000. So when it goes here, half of it is taxed as income the day you die. But in here, there's no tax. So whether you use a tax-free savings, whether you use an insurance product, whether you pay off your principal residence, whether you use a first home savings account, I recommend, by the way, I can't make recommendations. I would recommend, if you ever sat with me, you think about things that have no tax in the future. Or you think about, how can I do things without tax? How can I do things with paying less tax? Now the refund is good. I prefer getting a refund from business tax expenses, not from saving my money. So I don't know if that helps you or confuses you. Well, let's summarize. Keep in mind, providing for big financial goals, you have different ways to save. One of the goals might be higher education. What are we doing to offset this? Another goal is retirement. How much is the government going to give me? How much is the company going to give me? How much is personal savings? What's your strategy to get there? You know, when am I going to start creating passive income? When am I going to start maximizing my benefits? I've been in this business less than a decade full time, and my passive income is more than my parents' passive income when it comes to government benefits. Because I'm building passive income I was in my 30s. Now I'm in my 40s, isn't even plural because I'm in 41 days. So I'm in my 40. And always learn. Think about your money and planning ahead. Hey, where's my money going to go? And only you can take the steps. You control your money. And then one of the greatest miracles is you can change your life by just changing the way you think. And we want you to work with us, by the way. We want to teach you. We can't say save your money if we don't teach you to make more money. Poor people can't have a budget. When I was poor, I feel still poor, by the way. So when I say poor, I mean me too. Because I still have a budget. I'm still restricted every month. I don't have much extra money. And but I have a budget for my extra money. But when I had no extra money, what would a budget help? I ran out of money anyways. There was no extra money to budget. So they helped me here earn extra money so I could double my income. I was making 2 to 3 grand at my job. I started making 2 to 3 grand here. It changed my whole life. And you know, I'm in between 100 grand and $250,000 in income right now. And I'm getting closer to the top half, but we want you to learn how to make some extra money. Now you have money to manage. Do you want to use that to pay off debt, save money, take your family on a trip, go traveling? You can have choices with extra money. But with your current money, it's hard to choose with money you've already committed to spending. And we want you to work with a financial professional. My hope is that you reach out to the person that invited you here and you say, I was in a workshop and it was good. And I'd like to talk about it. And don't ghost them. If you don't want to talk about it or you didn't learn anything, let them know. It was a wonderful workshop. Timing is not right. Let's talk in the fall. That way you're communicating with them. They're worried about getting hurt and they're worried about hurting you too. So text them, give them a call and talk to them and get your questions answered by the person who invited you out. And I appreciate you guys coming out here on a Friday night. It is my birthday today. This is how I'm spending my birthday. And I have a website to review me. And I ask you, please give me a good 5-star review with some words. Click on, you can search my name. Google will pop up. Google Maps, pop up my name. Give me a review there. You can go to my WFG website, give me a review. But there is a review right there. I'd appreciate that. And if there's any questions, you let me know and we'll try to get them answered.